Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Vayakumu misham ha'anashim. So Avraham, at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, receives 3 guests, and Avraham feeds them in a very gracious and hospitable manner. And then they got up to go. Vayashkifu al pnei Sodom. And they happened to be standing, I guess, on a mountain or a high place that they could see the valley where Sodom was. Avraham holech imam l'shalcham. And Avraham was escorting his guests out. There is a mitzvah of Livias Hamed. Sorry. No. Oh, terrible slip. Livias ha'orech. Somebody comes to visit you. You don't just say from your couch, okay, bye, see you later. You walk them out. You come to the door. Maybe you walk down the street a little bit. It's polite. It's the correct thing to do. So Avraham was walking a little bit along with them. And so they're all standing, the guests and Avraham are standing at this high point looking out over Sodom. Hashem Omar. And God says, presumably, this is God saying to himself, Hamachasa ani me Avram asher ani oseh? Should I hide from Avraham that what I am about to do, meaning to destroy Sodom? Ki yadativ leman asher yitzave es banav es beiso acharav. Because he needs to know, in order to teach his children and his family afterwards, v'shamru derech Hashem, to guard and protect the way of God. Lasot tzedakah mishpat, to always do righteousness and justice. Leman havi Hashem al Avraham, eis kol diber elav. For that reason, God decides that he is going to tell Avraham what he is about to do. What is he about to do? Vayomer Hashem, now presumably God is speaking to Avraham. Zaka Sodom v'Amora ki rabba, v'chatosam ki kavda ma'od. The people of Sodom are wicked and evil. And God says, I'm going to destroy them all. V'Avraham odenu omei livnei Hashem. But Avraham is still standing before Hashem. Vayigash Avraham vayomar. So Avraham says to God, Ha'af tispet tzadikim rasha? Does that mean that you are going to kill everyone in Sodom, even the righteous, together with the wicked? Ulai yesh 50 tzadikim b'soch. Maybe there are 50 righteous people in the midst of the city. Ho'av tispeh v'lo tisa lamakom leman 50 tzadikim asher b'kirba. Notice, Avraham is not asking just to save the 50. He's asking if there are 50, maybe that's enough of a nucleus to be able to save the whole city on the merit of the 50. Chalila lacha me'asos kadavar hazeh. God forbid, he says to God, God forbid that you should do such a thing. Lahamis tzadikim rasha, to kill the righteous together with the wicked. V'haya katzadika rasha, and that means that what happens to the tzaddik in terms of punishment is the same thing that's going to happen to the rasha. That would be terrible. Chalila lacha, chalila lach, hashofei kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. The judge of the entire world should not act justly. Vayomer Hashem, and God answers, Im emsa b'sdom 50 tzadikim b'soch. You make a good point, Avraham. If there are 50 righteous people in the midst of the city, then I will save the entire city. Avraham asks, what about 45? 5 less, 45? Hashem says, okay. What about 40? Hashem says yes. What about 30? Hashem says yes. What about 20? Hashem says yes. Vayomer al noyicha ladoni vadabra achapam. Please don't get angry with me if I speak one more time. Ulayimtzu unsham asara. What if there are found there 10 righteous people in the midst of Sodom? Vayomer, and God says, Lo ashchis bavur hasara. Yes, I will not destroy the city, even if there are only 10. So, first of all, there is a theological problem. How in the world can a person, even Avraham, say these words? Ha'av tisped tzadikim rasha? Are you really going to punish the wicked, the righteous, together with the wicked? I mean, how do you question God about that? Years earlier, with the flood, the Mabul Noach didn't question God that maybe there are some righteous people who deserve to be saved besides me and my family. How could Avraham challenge God? And then, the next sentence, Chalila lach hashofeg kol haaretz lo yashem mishpat. I mean, this is an accusation. How does one speak to God, a human being, speak to God in these words? God forbid that you should do such a thing. A second question. Why does God tell Avraham first? Should I hide from Avraham what I'm about to say? God hides all kinds of things from all kinds of people all the time. God never said that he was going to split the Red Sea before they left Egypt. God never said, I mean, so many things that happen. God doesn't tell us. It's rather the exception when God says that this is going to happen. That's the exception, not the rule. So why in the world, in this case, would he tell Avraham about what he's going to do? So I think it's possible that the answer to the second question answers the first as well. The second question is, why tell Avraham first? Let's reread this pasuk. Should I hide this from Avraham? Ki adativ, because I know Laman that Avraham will be Laman asher yitzav es banav es beiso acharav. He will be the one to instruct his family and his descendants after him. V'shamru derech Hashem, and they will guard and protect the way of Hashem. Lasos tzedakah u'mishpat, to do righteousness and justice. So if God understands that Avraham has to teach his children what is right and what is just, and God says this to Avraham, tells him this news, it seems that Avraham understood maybe that if God is telling him this, he's being tested to see if he cares enough even about people who are wicked, to try to utilize God's mercy, to arouse God's mercy. In other words, perhaps Avraham understands that the reason God is telling him this is an invitation for Avraham to try to get God to change God's mind. Because otherwise, why would he tell him? I must say to you, though, even so, even if I am correct, the words that Avraham uses go beyond my understanding. It sounds like a not only an accusation, but an indictment. I mean, couldn't you think of other words to say? Hashem, let's discuss. Maybe you could find it within your heart. Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. Are you going to be a judge that is unjust? I'm not able to understand how Avraham was able to say those words, except to say that for Avraham, in that circumstance, his words were appropriate, and you see that because God responds to those words. But I am not sure how to extrapolate from what Avraham does to us. Could I ever say words like that to God? I mean, I certainly speak to God in my own words. There certainly are times when I am upset or angry, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I have, but in my heart, did I ever say anything as angry as I was, as disappointed as I was? And it's happened. Words like Avraham, I don't know if I could say those words. Do you think you could say those words? I mean, I could say to God, I'm upset. I don't understand. Please change your mind. Why can't it be different? I certainly have said those words to God. But to say to God, you're being unjust. I don't know. Do you think you could say those words? I don't know. But let's move to the second very difficult part of this passage. And that is that however we understand Avraham's words, God is willing to negotiate with Avraham about Sodom. It's not a fait accompli. That we see God the negotiator. God enters into a negotiation with Avraham. I guess this is God's version of the art of the deal. Let me ask you, does it seem like God is a good negotiator? Does it seem like God has read the art of the deal? Starts at 50 and then gives in. And then 45. And then all the way down to 10. Every single thing that Avraham asks, God says yes. A negotiation is you give in a little, I give in a little. We meet somewhere in the middle. A negotiation is not where I say yes to everything you ask for. There's not a single no. I don't understand that either. But I do think that there are two very important lessons that human beings are supposed to learn from this passage. And perhaps this is why it's written in the Torah like this, for us to learn these two lessons. Lesson number 1. Management lesson number 1. Learn from everyone. You can get good ideas anywhere. It doesn't matter if a person is high or low station. It doesn't matter if you like them or you don't like them. Be willing to listen to everyone, because you can get a great idea from anyone. Don't closet yourself with a small group of advisors who you know who will say yes to whatever you say. You can learn something valuable from everyone, even God. And we can't even grasp the chasm between God and any human being, even Avraham. God is willing, openly, to listen to what Avraham says. And number 2, be willing to reconsider your decision. Especially when you are certain that you're right. Especially when you're certain. Be willing to say, let me think it over again. Maybe you're right. Now, obviously, I'm not able to understand how that fits in with God doing this. But in terms of lessons for human beings to learn, what we should certainly see from this is even God is willing to reconsider. I've told this story before, and I think it's just such a great story. It needs to be repeated. There's a woman named Harriet. She's at home. She's doing her household routine, and she has the radio on, and she hears something on the radio, and immediately she calls her husband, George. And Harriet says to George, George, be careful. I just heard on the radio that on the highway where you are, where you're going, because she knew where he was going, on the highway where you are, there's a car driving you the wrong way. Be careful, you could get hurt. And George says to her, oh no, Harriet, it's much worse than that. Everyone is driving in the wrong way. If you think that everyone is driving in the wrong way, you need to check yourself to make sure that you, in fact, are driving in the right way. Especially when you're certain. Be willing to listen to another voice. Sometimes it takes a challenge or a crisis for someone to reconsider, like the imminent destruction of Sodom. Paul Romer once wrote, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Because there can be benefits from a crisis. We can learn lessons. We can utilize strengths we never had. We can come up with solutions we never thought of. Thomas Friedman used the term, the benefit of the burst bubble. Okay, the bubble burst. It may be terrible consequences, but what can we learn from it? What can we take from it positive? Of course, everything I'm saying requires the ability to listen, to really listen, which is, of course, another of the primary keys to leadership. Most people listen either while they are thinking of what they're going to say next, or even while they are talking. I've quoted before from Professor Stephen Carter, professor of law at Yale University Law School. He and I were teaching at the same time. I had the privilege to meet him and to learn with him. Stephen Carter, in a novel that he wrote titled New England White, Here's a reading suggestion. It's a great novel, New England White by Stephen Carter. He calls this listening with your mouth. A lot of people listen with their mouth, but if you listen with your mouth, you're not going to hear anything. That's what God teaches us. Rabbi Emanuel Jacobowitz reminds us that we need to remember that the two best known words in all of our traditional texts are Shema Yisrael, listen Israel. Doesn't say talk Israel. It says listen. And that's what God teaches us in his negotiating strategy. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.